And lo, it shall pass that the reviewer can't get off level 1, and he shall not care for the game, or want to play it for more than 20 minutes. But lo, he shall be fearful of the software company dropping advertising and missing him off the free crate of beer list at Christmas, and he shall tremble and quake mightily, as all rival mags have given it a high score. So, he shall give it a score low enough to dissuade potential buyers, yet high enough to pacify the software people. And that score shall be the number of the beast, and it shall be 73%.
Today's defendant, Sega Power 47, October 1993. The game, Gunstar Heores. Court is in session. This isn't a game I expected to see in this series. Gunstar Heores is a run and gun by Treasure, and both the game and the software house are considered classics in most circles. Treasure went on to produce Dynamite Headdy on the Mega Drive, and then, switching to later machines, a line of very decent shoot-em-ups, most notably Radiant Silvergun and the innovative Ikaruga. For you Nintendo fans, it was they who were behind Wario World on the GameCube. It's a pretty good legacy, and Gunstar Heores was actually the second game they started and the first they finished, having been formed by a bunch of developers at Konami after Konami decided they didn't want to make the game. They started the perfectly okay McDonald's Treasureland adventure for Sega first, partly in order to get the funding to do Gunstar Heores, and both were released close to each other in the tail end of 1993. It was a close run thing. Gunstar was rejected by 11 of the 12 producers at Sega before Max Senor decided to take a chance on it, involuntarily exclaiming, "This is Game of the Year," when he first tried it. Even so, he had to fight his boss to be allowed it. Incidentally, we have more than this to thank Mac for. He saved one more game from being cancelled by someone above him at a video game company. You might recognise it. So there's some promise here. Let's look at the evidence. First impressions of Gunstar are chuffing great. The intro is a wonderful thing with some great music. Even the title screen alone tells you that Treasure have a good technical handle on the machine. There's some good options too, including an easy mode for those beyond help at these kind of games, like me. In the days before twin-stick shooters, there were various approaches to being able to shoot in all directions, and Treasure have given you both of the best with the free versus fixed shot options. Free means you both walk and shoot in the direction you're pushing. With fixed shot, you stand still while shooting. There's advantages and disadvantages to both. With fixed, you are of course vulnerable a lot of the time. With free, it's very difficult to shoot things in the air because you don't have fine control of angles and tend to walk past your enemies. For me, fixed shot is the way to go, but I very much appreciate being given the choice. And the choice continues with the game also allowing you to choose a starting weapon. From the powerful force laser, lightning which can go through enemies, the chaser which hones in, and finally fire, which basically just destroys everything in sight and awards 800 cool points. And finally, you can even choose which of the game's 4 lengthy stages you start with. 4 is a bit short, but this is unashamedly a score attack arcade game at heart, and on easy mode this might even be a game some of us can finish. Being able to choose is excellent though, because there's little more annoying than dying on the final stage and end up playing the entire game only to die on the bit you didn't know how to do. Here you can practice the whole thing before making a run. There's one more complexity to the weapon sets, but we'll deal with that in a minute, because crikey is this busy! You can almost hear the Mega Drive creak at the seams as soon as it finds out what it's supposed to be animating. Because what it's supposed to be animating is literally everything. There isn't a bedding in period in this game. It's straight into the entire universe trying to turbo murder you, and there's no let up in the entire game on that score. You have one more advantage though, the other thing about those weapons. You can pick up a second one. Most likely it'll be the same as the one you chose at the start, which makes it double powerful. But you can choose to pair it with whatever drops, and if that happens you end up with a hybrid weapon that has properties from both. My favourite of those, which I used almost all the time I could, is this, which is the Force weapon paired with the homing one, that basically rains fiery doom on everyone in the vicinity. This is especially useful for some of those bosses, allowing you to do some really decent damage while hiding in the corner like whoever is trailing round after Nathan Drake this week. The weapons do demand different approaches. Whereas you can hide with my awesome homing force laser, if your weapon is the limited range flamethrower, your approach is to run in screaming and on fire. And in the game. And with the lightning, you can make a reasonable attempt to snipe, although that lasts until you're overwhelmed. It would of course be useful for hitting the critical point of bosses too. The variety in this game is pretty tremendous. The first stage is a relatively standard run and gun type approach, but even so, the 3 different bosses all have something interesting about them in their mechanics, from the mostly static tree, the Weetabix monster, to the actual end of level bosses in their mechanical supersuit. Stage 2 takes control away from you as you ride on a skateboard rushing through a mine chasing a train. It's even more fast-paced and switches perspective several times as the tunnel twists and turns throughout the level, eventually reaching a boss I haven't quite figured out the trick to yet, but I've got close. Stage 3 starts with a vertically scrolling trip up a tower chasing a plane, before becoming a more normal level, and Stage 4 starts fairly sensibly before turning into a boss rush board game, presenting several set pieces split up with free item squares and some speed traversal challenges, that, while sometimes awkward, mean the game keeps you on your toes always. It's a friendly game too. While it's by no means easy, even on easy mode, you do get infinite continues, which can start you slightly further through the stage than the start at least, and do maintain your completion of the other stages. It's all about minimising backtracking, which I do appreciate, although obviously it also invalidates any high score. The only downside to a continue is your reset to your default weapon, which can be a little mean when it starts you before a boss and you miss the one collectible it usually throws at you. Still though, this is a gem of a game. I'm not a run and gun fan, but I've been playing it on and off since I discovered it last year in my roundup of the games available on M2's fabulous Mega Drive Mini. Incidentally, M2 converted this game to the Game Gear in Japan way back in the day, with considerably more success than should have been possible. Although there is no universe in which you'd rather play that version than the original. The Mega Drive Mini is, I'm afraid, where you'll probably have to play it, despite Mac's fine work. Sega hobbled the game by ordering way fewer copies than they should have, a dismal 10,000 in Japan, and even with later print runs it only sold 250,000 or so worldwide. It's a 40 quid game unboxed in CEX, and while they're rarely the cheapest, it's not a lot better on eBay too, even if you go for the later compilation release, and then you have to factor in the extra cost of putting a sticker over Altered Beast so you don't have to look at it. So we disagree with Sega Power. That's fine. But so did just about everyone else. The game ended up winning 3 Game of the Year awards, to the not inconsiderable joy of producer Mac. The other UK magazines were near universally in agreement, with a 9 out of 10 from EGN, a 92 from CVG, a 93 from Mean Machines, and 94s from Sega Force and Sega Magazine. Edge gave it 6 because they hate fun, the same mark they gave Grand Theft Auto 3. The review starts poorly too. The intro reads, Dean Mortlock believes the world needs another platform game like Sonic needs a brisk walk along the M25, but Sega have released another one anyway. He may be right there, but I don't know why he's saying it in the intro to a game whose only section that could be remotely considered platforming lasts 20 seconds and exclusively consists of jumping vertically up. The intro to the review makes it crystal clear he'd prejudged the game before playing it, saying the premise sounds dull, which is just madness. He's got an axe to grind here, as the review says he found himself enjoying it anyway, followed by calling the control method superb and the graphics excellent. His biggest criticism in the main text is saying there are too many enemies. Too many enemies? Which, I'm not even going to deal with that, other than assuming he's literally never played a game in this genre before. He also believes it's too easy, which tells me he turned it down to easy and played it for about 15 minutes to write the review. Apparently, if you're not a huge platform fanatic, you'll soon tire of this. The review concludes by suggesting if you have Global Gladiators or Cool Spot, you don't need this in your life. Ignoring the slight irony of him mentioning a McDonald's game when Treasure were about to drop one, let me just play the start of a game of Gunstar Heroes alongside those two. You tell me if you think there's a big crossover. I'm sorry, this is bullshit in review form. If we recall the good book, he shall not care for the game or want to play it for more than 20 minutes. So he shall give it a score low enough to dissuade potential buyers, yet high enough to pacify the software people. Given that in this era Sega Power was actually edited by ex-Amiga Power editor Mark Ramshaw, I think he knew exactly what he was doing. Sega Power, I pronounce you guilty of first-degree lazy reviewing and sentence you to actually play through McDonald's Treasureland Adventure, or, as you would no doubt call it, a game for driving game fanatics. Guards, take him away. Court dismissed.